Pay more attention to what he does and less how you feel about it to land a high value man, a perfect man. Now, this is online dating advice that I just recently came across, where talk show or podcast host, a man, was giving this advice to the ladies in the room. Now, the intention of this video is to help you determine if this advice is healthy, is coming from a healthy place, is it good for both sides, for a man and a woman, or is it just good for one side, and what are the risks involved with this advice. Now, on one hand, this can be helpful for a woman to become aware of what is actually happening, like factually correct, and lessen the past projection onto present moment, into the current reality. When reality perception is distorted through past trauma and emotional wounding, this is more balanced, more in control, more self-aware approach when a woman is not fully at the mercy of her emotions, but she uses her self-awareness to be able to balance that out more. This is helpful, and this is more of a masculine polarity, giving more structure and balancing out the chaos. Now, if a woman just follows this advice, there is a big risk involved into this as well. And that risk is ignoring a woman's emotional reality. Our emotions informs us about our unmet needs, insecurities, wounds that needs to be addressed, healed, and met. Ignoring them will create even bigger inner resistance, or inner conflict, when part of you is fighting the other part of you. And so it's the internal push-pull. It's like, on the one hand, I want to do this, but on the other hand, no. And then there is no resolution and you're paralyzed. If our emotions are ignored, that only leads to more suppression and creating even bigger shadow, which in psychological terms can be characterized as all of the parts and aspects that we don't like and that we want to avoid and not be associated with. When our shadow grows bigger, there is this split of consciousness between the parts that we like to be associated with, the so-called good parts that we want others to perceive us in such way, and then on the other hand there are these parts that we feel ashamed, or we feel like these parts in some way make us feel less valuable, less likable, lovable, acceptable, etc. When a woman ignores her emotional reality, this is suppression. This is also going against self, against female nature. Now, men and women have different brain. Their thinking and perception of reality is quite different based on various factors. Now, in a way, this advice is asking women to be more like men, essentially eliminating any sex differences, Follow the logic, which is more masculine trait, and ignore your feelings, which is more feminine trait. This is how men would ideally like it, but This is not how women naturally function. They perceive more dangers and more vulnerabilities than men. And to say ignore this is to say ignore your heart and stay more into your mind, into your head space, mental space. More like a man, which is more ego driven, and to go against your own feminine or female nature. If a woman is not addressing her own emotional needs and concerns with her partner, this is a self-gaslighting when she's thinking in the terms of, is this emotion going to ruin his day, his business, humiliate him, or can I put this emotion aside and to earn more his respect by doing this? Now, acknowledging emotional trigger for a woman is important. First of all, to get clear if she is in alignment with herself, with the current situation, and then if herself is aligned with her man, with her partner. Because if that's not the case, then she's blindly following him, and that is not a true love. Rather, that is a desperate hope to stay in an unfulfilled relationship, to get some of her needs met, fighting maybe for some scraps, which mirrors how little her self-value is. So for a man, it's also very important regularly to check in with his woman and to see how is she emotionally, how is she doing, to notice and acknowledge her concerns, her fears, other emotions, hold space for that, for her, and support her and guide her through. Even if for a man this makes no sense and he sees no danger here whatsoever. Otherwise, she will not be fully seen, understood, validated, feel safe and supported. And a lot of cases, this is what happens when men just try to bulldoze over their mental logic, over feminine experience, which involves a lot of emotion, a lot of chaos, and this is not what men want to deal with. Why? Because in most cases, men haven't done enough their own emotional work, so they cannot handle their own emotions, not even talking about their women's emotions. It's too much, it's overwhelming. They cannot hold space for that properly. So they try to enforce their mental logic. It's like, don't feel what you're feeling, just look at my checklist. Look factually. Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? See? I did all of this for you on a paper, so I'm taking care of you. Which on physical plane that might be true, but if a man is not connected to her woman emotionally, then there is still big part missing, which is emotional safety, emotional intimacy and connection. And no matter how much you will be doing on the physical side, if you cannot have a solid emotional connection, none of the physical stuff that you did for her in the past will matter. So many of us men who still have a lot of emotional wounds within us, we want women to act through men's logic, our logic, and ditch the emotional component. And in this way, what we do is we project masculinity over the femininity, and we are not able to meet her where she is, what she needs, but instead we are solely focusing on what is our need and how she can adapt to that. Now, contrary to the popular belief or advice, emotions don't lead you to astray when you know how to properly listen to them and understand what message do they carry, what type of unmet need do they signal. So a quick review: pay more attention to what your man does and less how you feel about it. Advice to women: this advice comes from pure man's logic and is tailored to man's needs. And in this way, man wants to win a relationship based on logic and intellect. But this is not how relationships work. Women in general are more emotional creatures. So if we ignore an essential part of the other side, we're missing a lot of information. We're not able to fully meet the other side. We're bulldozing over. It's wonderful for a man to experience a woman, his partner, who is also doing the work and who develops more and more like awareness of her own emotional patterns, wounding triggers, and in developing awareness around this, she's also able to then apply that in her life and to see things in a more objective, more balanced way, and not just blindly follow her emotional wound projections onto what is happening. But in this way, she's also able to see the situation from a different angle, and that can be very helpful for relationships. That she's not just coming at man, like getting like hyper emotionally triggered, like maybe more times than necessary, like then it can take a heavy toll for a man. And it's also wonderful when a man is able to recognize his woman's emotions and become present, hold space for her, not abandon her, but like notice and be with her. And be aware that yes, from my male perspective, this seems illogical, and maybe there are tendencies that like to overlook this, ignore this, but then again, for me as a man to remember that, hey, my partner here, how she experiences this reality and what she perceives around her, it's different than what and how I perceive. Like I feel more safe, more solid, and less danger. But over there, it can be quite different story with her.